Underhooks. Simple and effective. This is not the end-all be-all of underhooks. This is not everything you can do with underhooks. These are simple and effective techniques that you can use from the underhook and score points, whether you're a first-year wrestler or an advanced wrestler who's been wrestling 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. Thanks for checking out this video today. If you're interested in learning more wrestling techniques, please subscribe, like the video, and click the bell for notifications, and you'll continue to get great wrestling content right here. All right, let's jump into this underhook series. The first thing we have to do to score a takedown using our underhook is actually getting into our underhook, and there's right ways and wrong ways to do that. As a wrestler, you should already know that you're going to have a lead leg and a back leg, an attack hand and a tie hand. I'm going to use my backhand or my tie hand to backhand reach onto my opponent's shoulder. From there, I'm using my attack hand and clubbing the head, and I then transition my tie hand into an underhook. I often like to use my underhook with my tie hand rather than my attack hand. It just feels a little bit better to me to have that tie and have my attack hand able to be faking and moving towards attacks. Now, the first actual takedown technique I'm going to go over is what I just call an underhook pull down. So after I've hit my setup, I've got my underhook in, I'm going to take my attack hand or my lead leg hand and I'm going to drive my forearm into my opponent's ear while my hand wraps over the top of my opponent's head. Not on their neck, I'm on the top of their head. From there, I'm going to use my hips and my legs to pull them down. That's right, my hips and my legs, not my arms. My arms are just pushing down. My legs are really doing most of the work as I pull my opponent down into a front headlock position. Once I get them down to the mat, my hand that was on top of the head is going to slide down to the chin. My underhook hand is going to come out and go on my opponent's tricep. From here, there's a variety of finishes you can use. I like to use just a big snap, get my opponent's head and elbow in the mat and score a go behind that way. But there's a ton of other techniques you can learn. But basically, any front headlock finish you can use from here. This is really just using your underhook to get the guy down underneath you. The second step in this series, I think, is the flashiest move. I've actually posted this move on Instagram before, and some people said that it wasn't real flashy. Trust me, if you hit this move in a gym packed full of people, there's going to be a lot of oohs and ahs and a lot of cheers as you pick your opponent from their feet right to their back and score now 6 or 7 points. So the setup is the same. I'm going to backhand reach, club, underhook, and I'm doing the exact same setup from this point as well. I'm going to put my forearm in my opponent's ear. I'm going to put my hand on the top of the back of their head, and I'm going to pull them just like I would to try to pull them down into a front headlock. But this time my opponent knows what I'm trying to do, understands that I'm trying to get them in my front headlock, and they're not going to go down. But what they're going to do is step their back leg forward rather than go down to the mat. As this leg steps forward, it's going to be exposed for my attack hand to leave the head and grab the knee, and I'm running on rails right in front of my opponent, putting them to the mat. I think it's hyper important to run in front of your opponent. I learned this technique from Sean Bormet and John Kading. John Kading, 4-time All-American, NCAA champion. Sean Bormet, 2-time All-American, head coach at Michigan right now, having a ton of success, one of the best programs in the country. This technique works really, really, really well, and it's super safe. Safe and effective. That's the title of the video. So again, backhand reach, club, underhook, pull my opponent down. I cannot stress enough that I'm pulling down. I'm not pulling them into me. As that back leg steps forward, I'm going to release the head. My attack hand is going to pick the knee as my tie hand punches forward, and I run in front of my opponent. I should end up scoring at least a takedown here, and oftentimes I'll get near fall. If you run into your opponent, you're going to lose a lot of power. They might be able to roll you through or just sprawl on you, so that's why we don't want to run into them or behind them. The third technique in this series is, again, it's going to be the same setup. Backhand reach, club, underhook. I'm going to pull my opponent down with my forearm in their ear, my hand on the top of their head. As I'm pulling them down, maybe they're not stepping that far leg forward enough. That's going to leave their near leg exposed. As they do that, I'm going to, with my underhook hand, I'm going to pop my elbow high and shoot in on my high crotch to that near leg and just drive them down for a takedown there. So again, backhand reach, club, underhook, pull them down. They're not going down to the mat. That back leg isn't stepping forward. I'm going to pop my elbow, blast, lower my level, and blast through on my high crotch and drive through. That is my most basic series that I use for underhooks. I used that through high school, I used it through college, and I had a ton of success scoring with just that little series of 3 moves alone. If I'm able to get to my underhook, one of those 3 things is going to be available to me. Either they're going down, I'm going to hit my knee pick, or I can get to my high C. The other technique that I really like to use from here is something I learned in college from another wrestler, which is a punch over. So I'm going to do the same setup, a backhand reach, club the head, underhook, and I'm punching my arm over my head and trying to put my bicep in my own ear as I'm crow hopping just into my opponent. The crow hop, as I crow hop, I'm not stepping totally to the side. I'm kind of trying to step a little bit behind them so that I can catch their leg. So as I punch, my attack hand is really just reaching. Of course I'm trying to grab that near leg, but I might not be able to see it as I'm punching my head and swinging my head. So as I'm doing that, my hand's just kind of coming out and reaching, and hopefully I can snag part of that leg. It can be really effective when you do this right off when you get your underhook, or right off when you're trying one of these other techniques. So I had success backhand reach, club, underhook, pulling that guy down. He's not going down. Okay, now I'm just going to punch my arm over my head and attack that leg. And oftentimes that'll be there because my opponent's not really expecting that punch over if I'm looking for a different technique at the time, or if I'm hitting it as soon as I get to my underhook. The other thing I can do with the punch over is I might be able, if I miss the leg, I can attack the body, get behind my opponent, and often they're going to bail, or I'm going to be able to easily return them and at least get my takedown. All right, if you go to hit that underhook throw by, you punch, you reach, you don't get the leg, you don't get the body. If you're ready to go, there's an attack there on the other side. So I'm going to underhook, punch, attack, I miss. I'm going to switch sides on my opponent and I'm going to attack the far side. Since I'm underhooking with my tie hand very often, most of the time for me, I'm switching sides and hitting my single. This is available to you because as you go for that throw by punch, they're going to usually kick that leg back, and you can switch sides and hit the far side leg because all of the weight is going to be on that leg. They're going to have a hard time moving that real quick. That takes a lot of timing and a ton of practice, but it is available to you. It's probably the most complicated technique you're going to see in this video. Again, those are simple and effective techniques that can work for anyone. Whether you're a first-year wrestler or you're in your 5th year, whether you're a heavyweight or you're a 106-pounder, or your body type is super tall and lanky or stocky, that is a technique that anyone can use. Now, let's get into some simple and effective defenses from your opponent underhooking you. These defenses aren't defense against the techniques that I just showed, the takedowns I just showed. These are defensive techniques against an actual underhook, because that's really what we're trying to defend here. If my opponent already has my head down and they're pulling me, I'm in trouble. I need to get out of the underhook altogether in order to be safe. And most of all, if I'm out of the underhook, I have an opportunity to get to my own ties and get my own scores going. The number one thing I'm always going to do is I'm trying to pinch my arm down and pull it out. There's times where someone's underhooking me, and if I feel it early enough, I can just straighten my arm and slide it right out. The way I like to defend an underhook is as soon as I'm underhook, I'm going to pinch my arm down to put pressure on the underhook and create space between their arm and their shoulder where I can put my arm and slide it out. So once I've pinched it down, I'm going to slide my elbow up to their ear, and I'm sliding my arm out down their shoulder. And I'm going to do that as quickly as I possibly can. So pinch, elbow goes to the ear, I'm sliding it straight down. The other things we want to focus on when we're sliding our underhook out is a lot of times we want to have head position if we can. The best way to win head position, if I'm losing head position, is I'm going to lower my head and I'm going to try to circle it into my opponent's head. The next thing you always hear from coaches is you want to control the other side of the body. So that basically means I want to control their wrist, I want to control their hand, I want to control an inside tie on that opposite side. That's really going to stop them from being able to really use that underhook. If I'm controlling their head and I'm controlling the opposite side of the body, that's going to give me some safety to work that underhook out if I need a little more time to sneak it out of there. There's also techniques that I can hit from an overhook, but I want to say this first before I go into those, which is the number one thing you want to do when you're getting underhooked by your opponent is get that sucker out. You don't want to be sitting around in somebody else's underhook. Get out of their underhook. Don't rely on, oh, I can do these other techniques from this overhook. They're going to be most of the time in a better position to score than you are. There's guys that like overhooks that can get really good at it, but that is a small percentage of wrestlers. A lot of times you want to do the safe thing and get out of that underhook. The first technique that I like to use from an overhook is a fireman's carry. The way I hit my fireman's carry is when someone overhooks me, I'm going to pinch my overhook down. I'm going to drop in on a high crotch. My trail leg, as it comes up, I'm going to drive over my own hip and dump my opponent off the top of my head. I'm not going straight to the side, which a lot of people think a fireman's carry is I'm pivoting at my hips over the side. I want to drive through on my high crotch. My trail leg comes up. As it comes up, rather than driving across like I would on a regular high crotch, I'm going to drop to that hip, dump my opponent off the top of my head, and then I'm going to cover and hopefully get my near fall as well as a takedown. The other technique I want to talk about from an overhook position is a beauty. If they're underhooking you hard and they leave that head up and hanging, a headlock is just there for the plucking. So if that head's there, I'm going to whip my overhook out after I'm pressuring down. I'm going to try and take that guy's head off. I turn my hips into my opponent and I'm headlocking him to the mat. Make sure I catch that far arm and I'm looking for a fall there. That's one of the best ways to hit a headlock is from defending an underhook. A lot of guys are going to dig that underhook in, they're going to drive in, they're going to leave their head out hanging, and it's right there. Boom, you could rip that head right off. Look, that's all I got for this video. Again, simple and effective underhooks. This will work for anybody, whether you're 106 or heavyweight, you're a first-year wrestler, or you've got some experience. This is something that can build success for anybody. Thanks for checking out this whole video. If you've made it this far and you haven't clicked that thumbs up, subscribe, and bell for notifications, please go ahead and do that now so you'll get more awesome wrestling content. Thanks, and I'll see you on the next one.